Good evening, everyone. Today we have with us Hasina Kharbhih, a social entrepreneur and Ashoka Fellowship awardee, founder of Impulse NGO Network, which is a social organization that helps counter and tackle the problem of human trafficking, HIV/AIDS intervention, and supports the livelihood of rural Northeast India. So, ma'am, could you please tell us about the Meghalaya model?
Impulse NGO Network is an organization that is in existence for 23 years now, and in the last 23 years it evolved with a good practice model, which was earlier known as the Meghalaya model, and now it is known as an Impulse model because of the brand as it was scaling up to many states and also across the border of India, neighboring countries of Bangladesh, Myanmar and Nepal. The word Meghalaya was not something that was more adoptable because it's a state name, so it changed into Impulse model. Impulse model is a holistic intervention to address and tackle the issue of human trafficking. It works under the 12 pillars, which is called the 6 P's and the 6 R's. The 6 P's are the comprehensive support system that work with collaborative stakeholders, and it's called partnership, prevention, protection, policing, press and prosecution. And the 6R is the intervention aspect, which is called report, rescue, rehabilitation, repatriation, reintegration and recompensation. Now they work very collectively. They bring all stakeholders not to duplicate any initiative on human trafficking. It looks into validating that duplication of work will not help to counter the issue of human right violations such as human trafficking. So that is what the Impulse model is in short. And it also has been working in 19 years now in 8 states of the Northeast with 58 partners. And across the border of Southeast Asia, we have around 168 partners altogether. And the model over the years decided to evolve. And in the process of its involvement, it realized that technology is a very important element to help in addressing human trafficking much more in a collective manner, and also to ensure that case management system is taken care through the use of a software. Now this software, which is called the Impulse Case Info Center software, it has been in existence for 1.5 years now, and the good news is that here I am at IIT, and it evolves out of an incubation center of IIT, which is earlier called SpeechWareNet, and Sanjeevan Devnath, who is a software engineer, who is also having his new expansion incubation right now, which is again in IIT and working with us into the phase 2. The phase 2 involvement is that cross-border human trafficking can only be tackled if we have a comprehensive technology support system to address human trafficking that will enable law enforcement to counter rescue operation and also alert system to each other. Unless human trafficking will be, the work in human trafficking will be under isolation if you don't connect countries across the border. So that's what Impulse model is all about.
So ma'am, your field of work involves a lot of interaction with people, all kinds of people. So during this course of your career, did you ever get threatened by like the human traffickers? Did you ever have a bad experience, something like that?
Now when we talk about human trafficking, it's a global business, and a global business which does not need any kind of investment. Today is a $31 million business globally, and when you try to stop an issue as human trafficking, definitely you encounter a lot of threats and a lot of situation that you have to face. And in my career span of 19 years, I was attacked, I was followed, office was ransacked. In 2009, the threat point was that my driver died on the spot, and I managed to escape. And that is when we started to work towards the prosecution of traffickers who were involved in this business. And they used to say, there's a saying that when you stop somebody's business which is prosperous, definitely they will not like it. And this is a business which is, you don't need any kind of investment. So that's when the threat point came. That was way back in 2009. And when I look back to it, I realized that the work of human trafficking is very challenging, but I believe very strongly that no human being should be sold and no human being should be under slavery. So my work continues, and with a lot of support system from a lot of agency globally that have helped me to move on with all these threats, and also helped to give me international protection to work on the issue.
Okay. So, ma'am, as you've said in one of your interviews that crime issues have been looked upon as an area of man's work, and you being like a woman, how did you tackle those problems that came across?
I think this whole gender issues, continue to be one aspect that when you work with human rights or crime issues, it's never looked that a woman should be tackling these kind of issues. It's always a man's job. It's like whether we look at the enforcement, the uniform personnel, even till today, after many years of my work, you don't see much women entering this field of crime issue. And the reason behind that, I think, it's just not an issue of India, but it's a global issue that you find women doing more softer work as they are expected to do. It's not that they're incapable to do. And when women start taking up issue like crime issue, they're always being challenged as how much can you do and how much can you really respond to it. And I think that has been my journey. And when I look back, I still remember a quote by one law enforcement when he told me, he said, "What are you doing with working on human trafficking? These people are willingly getting into prostitution, and you shouldn't be coming to stop prostitution." So my only talk to him at that point of time, he was a very high-ranking law enforcement in the country. I said, no woman in this world would like to exploit her own body and sell her own body. And it is not a choice that they make, but it's also the fact that they're duped, they've been challenged, they have no opportunities, and sometimes when they get cheated into this situation and they traffic, they have no other place to return back. So I will not take when you're trying to tell me that women are willingly getting into prostitution. But what he's trying to do is like, you're a woman, you should be doing something which is more easy, more rehabilitation, offering more livelihood initiative rather than working in countering the crime. And 6 years ago, when I had to do a training nationally, because I'm a trainer for law enforcement, he was one of my students in that class, and I said, I'm glad that you're here and your mindset has changed, that it's a global issue. We have laws in our countries that has to stop human trafficking. India has signed the UN protocol on addressing human trafficking, so we need to address this much more effectively. So mindset changing takes time, and for enforcement in our country too to be sensitized on the issue, it took almost a period of 10 to 12 years. But I'm glad to see that the anti-human trafficking unit that has been set by the Ministry of the Ministry of Home Affairs has evolved to be much more of a strategic support system to our country, and they are the one who's using the software for the moment.
Okay, ma'am, as you mentioned before that Assam and Northeast shares borders with Myanmar, Nepal, and China. So the trafficking problem here is like pretty it is pretty visible. So what is the status of this problem in India and as Assam and Northeast, and like on a global map as well?
So India, in the global map, India is a source point, it's a transit point, and it's also a destination point. Now coming back to the Northeast, we share a lot of international borders. Geographically, when you look at the map and when you look at the boundaries that we have, Assam, Meghalaya and Tripura has long boundaries with Bangladesh. When we're looking at Manipur, Mizoram and Nagaland, we have long borders with Myanmar, and part of Arunachal has long borders as well. And we're looking at Sikkim, and part of Arunachal we have long borders with China, and also we have borders with Bhutan, with Assam. So practically it's a geographical location that we are in a situation that we have a lot of transit that is happening through our northeastern states when it comes to migration, and many of the migration which is taking place are also situation of unsafe migration. And the other factor is that we are a destination, in other words, is because we have a lot of migration happening from Bangladesh to our northeastern region, and that's also one factor that brings in a lot of labor force in our region who are also victims of human trafficking in one way or the other. Just like the trafficking that took place to the coal mining in Meghalaya, we have more children from Nepal and Bangladesh because the rat hole mining in Meghalaya require cheap labor and require children. So children from these neighboring countries were brought. But at least 1.5 years now after our public interest litigation, that the mining has completely been stopped, which is a 30 years old mining industry. So trafficking has various forms, and the region itself is not just a transit, but it's also a destination for all kind of situation that we have.
Like you said about your NGO, like it is the work of your life. So could you please tell us about it?
Well, when people ask me this question and say, I said I'm married to my vision. I think I live and breathe the work that I do. I guess because I started very, very young in life, and today when I look back, I feel that I would have not been happier, doing anything else in this world besides what I'm doing. Now, when I say that, I always tell a lot of young people, because I started myself very young at the age of 17, that when you start young and you actually encounter challenges and you take it very positively, because you're always seeking to do things better the next day. But when you're older, and I look at myself, when I was 17, I didn't mind whatever prejudice or whatever criticism I get. I keep doing it. And then I see the change happening faster. But when I'm much older, then I think 10 times before I take a step. And that's how, we all grow over the years. But the work that I took it on all these years is, I believe that development work is not necessary that it should be a charitable approach. It's not necessary that when people retire from their work and they start doing social work. Development work could also be work started by young people and taking it to the next level, and intervening on any kind of social change.
Ma'am, we do know that amongst your many talents, you have this talent of writing, and you've written 3 books. So, do we see a book coming from you in the near future?
All right. So I love writing poetries, and that has been one of my passion over the years. The 3 books that evolved earlier has been books on poetries. They've been translated into French version and many others. So we have Beyond the Veil is a book which has the English version and the French version. The Woman in Me was one of the first book, and Unknown Destination was another book. Now, beside that, I've co-authored many books and over the years on development issues, rights issues, and others. Yes, I'm writing practically. I have lesser time to write nowadays than I used to have then, and I think the passion to writing today is more like when people read what I write. What I write 10 years ago was more literature based. What I write now is more of right based. I think your work that you do every day, that you encounter every day, change the way you put your thoughts together. But by nature, I would say when you love to write, you continue to write. And yes, I'll be coming out with a book soon. And hopefully I'll finish the chapters as soon as possible. And that is a book that it's relating to my journey working with children in the coal mines. And it's more of a personal journey that has helped me to look at things much more differently from the issue of economic and the issue of right and the issue of children. But it's not like a technical book. I've written too much of technical books over my years of work and research papers and all of that. So I'm trying to relate my personal journey mainly in that book. Hopefully I complete very soon.
So, ma'am, given a choice that you'd be like an author and this social entrepreneur, what would you have chosen at that point if you want to go back?
If I go back, I think that's a bit hard question to be asking me today. But I love to cook, Okay. I enjoy to cook. And I think cooking is something that it's very distressing for me, maybe because I have to deal with human issues and human rights issues every day. I come back and distress by cooking. I always tell myself that the day I retire, I'll open a restaurant, and it's going to be a restaurant where people have poetry readings and open mics and a restaurant. I think I'll definitely do that if I ever go back, and retire from what I do, because I've spent 23 years now doing what I'm doing, and I've seen more younger people engaging with the Impulse model today. And the Impulse model today has a lab. The opening of the lab is getting a lot of young people from all walk of life to engage themselves to scale my 12 pillars across the global work. And like I just said, technology is one form, and I'm glad that Sanjeev and Devnath was connected from my talk in this campus itself. It is part of my process, and I do have a lot of young people in my team right now, and I'm giving myself in the next 5 years I should retire and maybe open a restaurant. But going back to the question about being an author, I think when I open the restaurant I have more time to be more creative. Then I'll definitely come up with a book.
I hope we do get a reservation with that hotel.
Definitely.
That apart, ma'am, poetry is the source of inspiration for all of us, and so it would have been for you also. So is there any particular poem that you like that is your source of inspiration?
Every poetry that I've written has always have an incident in my life that has inspired. So I don't really have a particular poetry that really inspire me, but I think every poem that I've written over the years has always been what I experience, what I encounter, what I relate. Of course, when I look at the book Woman in Me, I find it's very kiddish right now, but then when I look at my latest book, I find it's much more matured. But over the years, I would say that poetry's creativity comes when you encounter a lot of challenge in life, you express it through poetries. And I think because I love to write diaries, so it's another factor of me that I write diaries, but my diaries always culminate into a poetry. So I will not have any particular favorites, because every time it's always something that emerge in the journey that I've been writing.